Zoe Kravitz has just shared startling new details about Jason Momoa's divorce from her mother, Lisa Bonet, and it's left even longtime fans doing a double take. For so long, this famously blended family appeared to embody everything harmonious about modern celebrity relationships. Jason and Lisa seemed inseparable and spiritually attuned, while Zoe coexisted happily with her mom, her stepdad, and her biological father, Lenny Kravitz. There was a time you couldn't open a magazine or social feed without seeing them share an embrace at red carpets or showing off cozy family gatherings that radiated warmth. But beneath that picture-perfect exterior, Zoe knew that certain events were unfolding, some subtle, some explosive, that foreshadowed this very public breakup. Now that the separation has been formalized, Zoe is finally willing to speak out, dropping a series of revelations that cast the entire situation in a brand new light. The secrets she's unveiling aren't just about a marriage that failed, they're about the tricky emotional labyrinth that forms when ambition, fame, and quiet resentments start to tangle. From the outside, many were convinced that Jason Momoa's union with Lisa Bonet was rock solid. After all, Jason had worshipped Lisa from afar since childhood, back when she was charming audiences in The Cosby Show, and he was just a young kid with a dream. Their eventual romance, fueled by chance encounters and deep personal chemistry, seemed almost fated. Together, they built a family, welcoming 2 children, Lola and Nakoa Wolf. They maintained affectionate ties with Lenny Kravitz, demonstrating a co-parenting synergy that left Hollywood in awe. Now, Zoe Kravitz's new bombshells confirm what some insiders suspected all along, that even the most dazzling relationships can suffer from cracks invisible to the public eye, and those cracks might widen with each red carpet event, each social media post, each unstoppable wave of success. Zoe's decision to speak out didn't happen overnight. After all, she's famously protective of her private life, having grown up in a swirl of paparazzi and headlines about her parents. In fact, she spent years declining to comment on any rumors swirling around Lisa and Jason. She would calmly pivot during interviews, focusing on her own career, her breakout roles in blockbuster films, her stints in modeling and music, and her unrelenting drive to carve out an identity separate from her lineage. But eventually, in quiet corners of social gatherings and hush-hush interviews, Zoe began to let slip that she'd witnessed trouble brewing in Lisa and Jason's relationship long before the public saw signs of strain. Though she never publicly criticized either parent, she adores her mother and respects Jason deeply. She couldn't ignore that tension simmered behind all those heartwarming photos that fans devoured on Instagram. The biggest question, of course, is, why now? Why is Zoe dropping these secrets at this precise moment? Some speculate that she grew weary of the rumors, the unending speculation that painted Lisa as distant or Jason as fully consumed by his career. Others suggest that certain personal developments, such as Jason's rumored romances post-divorce, pushed Zoe to speak her truth, if only to quell the distortions swirling in the tabloids. According to close friends, however, it was less about external pressure and more about an internal shift in Zoe. She felt she owed it to herself and to the young fans watching her to be transparent about how complicated real-life families can be, especially when fame amplifies every private conflict. One of the most striking revelations Zoe shares involves the months leading up to the divorce announcement. While the outside world saw a seemingly unbreakable duo, Zoe remembers numerous late-night phone calls, tearful confessions, and anxious discussions as Lisa grappled with how she and Jason were drifting apart. Zoe paints a picture of her mother retreating inward, struggling to maintain the calm, spiritual energy she's renowned for, all while Jason's schedule grew more hectic by the day. As Jason soared to even greater fame, particularly after the colossal success of Aquaman, he often found himself filming in remote, exotic locations for months at a time. Lisa, craving intimacy and family togetherness, was left to manage the home front, raising Lola and Nakoa Wolf, and occasionally seeking counsel from Zoe, who was dealing with her own career pressures. What stung was that the quiet despair Lisa felt didn't stem from one explosive fight or betrayal. Rather, it was a slow, creeping disconnect, the kind that gnaws at the roots of a relationship until it's too weak to stand. Through Zoe's eyes, we discover that Lisa tried repeatedly to communicate her unhappiness. While she respected Jason's ambitions and appreciated the financial and emotional security he provided, she missed the man who used to make her laugh with silly jokes, who'd help with homework or cooking dinner, who always seemed present in the moment. Jason, juggling career leaps and, at times, overshadowed by the machinery of Hollywood, didn't fully see how that emotional distance was corroding their bond. Zoe mentions that she pleaded with both parties to talk openly, to set aside time for each other, but that life's breakneck speed and their diverging personal goals stood in the way. It wasn't just Lisa who felt the strain. Zoe recounts that Jason himself had days of profound guilt and loneliness, missing his family deeply while overseas. Yet whenever he'd return, the synergy was off. They'd grown unaccustomed to living under the same roof for extended periods. Routine arguments flared up about small things, like how to discipline the kids or how to spend the holidays. Zoe's new revelations suggest that these seemingly trivial disagreements were symptomatic of bigger issues, like the fact that their once shared dreams no longer aligned. Jason wanted to ride the crest of his career momentum. Lisa desired a tranquil life that honored a deeper spiritual calling, a sense of everyday wonder she found in nature and creative pursuits. Zoe watched heartbroken as these two soulmates discovered, in slow motion, that they were on paths pulling them in opposite directions. In a way, Zoe found herself in a familiar role, the mediator caught in the crossfires, just as she was, once the child bridging the gap between Lisa and Lenny Kravitz post-divorce. But she was no longer a young girl. She was a grown woman with her own life, dreams, and heartbreaks. That vantage point gave Zoe a unique lens, an empathetic but discerning perspective. She realized that trying to force them to stay together might only make the eventual split uglier. Still, she hoped a thorough heart-to-heart might salvage the best aspects of their bond, or at least facilitate a more loving transition if a breakup was inevitable. The seeds of that heartbreak crystallized one afternoon, as Zoe reveals in her bombshell commentary. She describes a family gathering. Both Lisa and Jason were present, along with Lola, Nakoa Wolf, and some close friends. Zoe says she sensed an awkward distance, the kind of tension that creeps into a room even when everyone's smiling and trying to pretend nothing's wrong. Jason was physically there, but his mind seemed elsewhere. Lisa attempted to engage him in conversation about upcoming travel plans, but he offered short, distracted answers. Later that day, Zoe found her mother outside, looking off into the distance with tears in her eyes. When Zoe asked what was wrong, Lisa quietly admitted she wasn't sure if Jason truly wanted to be there anymore, that his heart might be drifting somewhere else, not necessarily with another person, but into a life that couldn't coexist with the simple, grounded approach Lisa cherished. Zoe confesses that seeing her mother's heartbreak in that vulnerable moment became a turning point. She realized that this wasn't just a typical marital rough patch. Something deeper was unraveling. Zoe's revelations don't solely revolve around heartbreak. She also touches on how the divorce impacted her younger siblings. Lola and Nakoa Wolf idolized their father, often describing him as a real-life superhero. To see him around less and less not only confused them, but also instilled an underlying fear that love doesn't always last. Zoe found herself stepping in, easing their worries, explaining that yes, grown-ups sometimes choose different paths, but that doesn't mean the love they shared wasn't real. In these intimate confessions, Zoe reveals her protective streak. She felt responsible for ensuring that Lola and Nakoa Wolf kept some sense of security, an emotional anchor, even as the family dynamic shifted. At times, as Zoe says, it felt like she was living two lives. She'd be on set filming a high-profile movie, then rushing home to comfort siblings, managing the fallout of tension between Lisa and Jason, and doing her best not to pick sides. Zoe's commentary on Lenny Kravitz's role is equally fascinating. According to her, Lenny had always extended warmth toward Jason, forging a famously cordial relationship. Yet behind the scenes, there were occasional flickers of jealousy and discomfort. How could there not be, with Lenny still playing such a significant part in Lisa's life and Zoe's? Still, Lenny tried to stay supportive, offering Lisa and Jason space to work through their issues. Zoe describes moments when Lenny served as a sounding board for both her and Lisa, reminding them that families can remain close-knit even after a divorce if they focus on mutual respect. It's precisely that perspective that Zoe says guided her approach when she felt torn. She'd lived through one divorce as a child, after all, and came out the other side with a strong sense of unconditional love from both parents. She wanted something similar, if possible, for Lola and Nakoa Wolf. Another bombshell Zoe drops concerns the final months leading up to the official announcement of the separation. She recalls Lisa and Jason allegedly living almost separate lives under the same roof. Sure, they'd appear together at certain gatherings or events, but those appearances masked a deep chasm in daily life. Zoe reveals that she found Lisa eating alone late at night, journaling, lost in reflection about whether the marriage could be saved or if it was time to accept the inevitable. Jason was often out, either at late-night industry functions or planning for his next big role. Zoe remembers a day where her mother quietly handed her a small stack of Polaroids, pictures that captured them in earlier days, joyous and unguarded. She told Zoe, "I'm not sure if we can ever get back here." Zoe's heartbreak in that moment is palpable. She realized her mother was close to letting go of a bond she once believed was forever. For watchers of celebrity gossip, it's easy to assume the official divorce announcement might have been triggered by a single shocking event, rumors of infidelity or a major betrayal. But Zoe clarifies that from her vantage point, the split was more a case of love eroding under unstoppable circumstances. The unstoppable tide of career obligations, the unstoppable march of time, and unstoppable differences in personal priorities. Lisa apparently had given many gentle warnings. Jason, consumed by the juggernaut of success, missed or minimized these cues until the emotional gap felt insurmountable. There was no catastrophic meltdown, no one-time blowout. Instead, it was the slow attrition of a once intense bond, leaving both feeling lonely in their own house. Zoe's secrets, in that sense, are less about dramatic scandal and more about the honest but painful realization that sometimes even the deepest love can't survive if both parties are moving in opposite directions. Where does this leave Jason now? Zoe suggests that despite the sadness, he's grown introspective. She's heard him speak of regrets, of wishing he'd recognized Lisa's signals earlier, or taken more proactive steps to bridge the emotional distance. Yet ironically, it was partly his unstoppable success that overshadowed that awareness. Now that he and Lisa have parted, he's rumored to be in new relationships, a reality that can stir up complex emotions in everyone involved. Zoe's vantage point is nuanced. She doesn't resent him for moving on, but she does voice concern about how quickly new partners might be introduced into the children's lives. She wants to ensure Lola and Nakoa Wolf remain the priority in every decision Jason or Lisa makes, a sentiment that echoes the structure of her own upbringing, where even post-divorce, Lenny and Lisa managed to maintain a certain synergy for her benefit. Of course, Zoe doesn't claim to have all the answers. She freely admits that she struggles with her own heartbreak over the dissolution of a family dynamic that once brought her immense joy. She misses the days when Jason's energy enlivened the home, when the entire clan shared sun-drenched vacations and family dinners that ended in laughter. But heartbreak, as she explains, doesn't diminish the love that once was. In fact, she's learned that acknowledging heartbreak can be an act of grace, an admission that something real existed and it ended before its time. She sees both Lisa and Jason grappling with that heartbreak in their own distinct ways, navigating new opportunities and new relationships, but never fully shutting the door on the love they shared. Zoe's confessions also highlight the toll the divorce took on her personally. She found it mentally taxing to juggle her blossoming career, where she's headlining major films and forging new roles as a producer, with the emotional exhaustion of trying to support her mother, stay connected to her younger siblings, and remain caring toward Jason. There were days, she says, where she felt she had to hold the family's emotional center because Lisa was too drained and Jason was too distant. Sometimes she resented that burden. Other times she embraced it as part of her responsibility, reminiscent of how she once navigated her parents' own breakup. In the end, she believes it forced her to grow up faster, perhaps, ironically, fueling the depth and intensity that fans see in her performances on screen. Life, she realizes, can be a rigorous teacher. So what does Zoe's future look like now that she's dropped these revelations about Jason Momoa's divorce? She's forging ahead in her acting endeavors, exploring her personal life with a sense of caution shaped by the familial fractures she's witnessed. If there's any silver lining, it's that she's even more committed to open, honest communication in her own relationships, determined not to let misunderstandings fester or let external pressures overshadow personal bonds. She says that she's learned a great deal from watching Jason and Lisa, the importance of cherishing small moments, of championing each other's passions without letting them overshadow the core intimacy that binds two people together. For fans, these new secrets reshape how we view Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet's once inseparable romance. It's tempting to cling to the fairy tale narrative of a starstruck Jason meeting his childhood crush and building a perfect family. But real life rarely aligns perfectly with storybook romance. Their love was tangible and strong, but as Zoe clarifies, life's complexities can chip away at even the most robust foundations. If there's any final lesson, perhaps it's that celebrities experience heartbreak and fractured dreams just like everyone else. Their arguments, their exhaustion, their yearnings for personal freedom amid familial obligations, they're all magnified by the camera lens, but they're also deeply human. Zoe's parting insight is that the divorce needn't negate everything good that existed. She insists that her mother and Jason still hold a certain tenderness for one another, a thread of respect that remains. She's watched them share a cordial laugh at family events or exchange an encouraging text about the kids. It's not reconciliation, but a redefinition of who they are to one another. In Zoe's eyes, that redefinition is where true healing resides. With the marriage behind them, Lisa and Jason can approach co-parenting and mutual understanding without the burden of resentments that once built up from expectations unfulfilled. Zoe hopes that fans realize love can manifest in many forms and that an ended marriage doesn't always mean an ended sense of unity, especially where children are concerned. Now that Zoe has come forward, the ripple effect is clear. Fans are re-examining every old photo, every snippet of their public appearances, searching for clues about the hidden tensions that Zoe mentioned. Some express sadness that a relationship that seems so pure could dissolve so quietly. Others find comfort that even after heartbreak, a family can stand united enough to protect the kids, forging new definitions of connection. Zoe's vantage point, bridging the older generation, Lisa and Jason, and the new, Lola and Nakoa Wolf, provides a timely reminder that relationships are multifaceted, that illusions of perfection are often illusions indeed, and that heartbreak doesn't always have a singular villain. Throughout her commentary, Zoe returns to one core theme: honesty. She believes that the greatest tragedy wasn't the end of the marriage, but the months or years in which honest conversations might have saved them from deeper pain, or at least allowed a gentler conclusion. Her revelations underscore that sometimes your heart can ache for both parties, for a mother who felt unseen, and for a father figure who was lost in a whirlwind of international stardom. It's the epitome of a no-win scenario. Do you suppress your needs so your partner can flourish, or do you speak up and risk fracturing the bond? Ultimately, Lisa and Jason had to choose self-preservation over silent sacrifice, though not without cost. As we reflect on Zoe's confessions, the question arises: how many other celebrity splits are as quietly complicated as this one? Perhaps more than we realize. The public is quick to judge or to pick sides, but Zoe's words invite us to remember that there's always a deeper, more emotional narrative beneath the headlines. That narrative includes heartbreak, dreams once shared, children who adore both parents, and friends like Zoe, caught between loyalty and a desire for truth. In revealing these secrets, Zoe has given the public a glimpse behind the curtain of Hollywood's illusions, emphasizing that the personal struggles of superstars mirror the very real, very raw pains we all face at one point or another in our relationships. In the end, Zoe's new revelations don't reduce Jason Momoa or Lisa Bonet to heroes or villains. Instead, they humanize them, reminding us that love stories can shift and that endings can be neither disastrous nor triumphant, but a little bit of both. She shows that heartbreak can coexist with empathy, that regrets can be balanced by gratitude. And for many fans, that's a refreshing departure from the sensational tabloids or the carefully curated Instagram illusions. Life is messy, emotional, and sometimes you can't fix what's broken, but you can choose to navigate the aftermath with compassion. So, is this the final word on Jason Momoa's divorce from Lisa Bonet? Hardly. Zoe herself hints that their story remains in progress. They still have birthdays, milestones, and uncertain futures to navigate together as a family, however unconventional that family might look now. Yet for the first time, fans have a direct window into what truly happened behind the scenes, courtesy of the daughter who watched it all unravel up close. If nothing else, Zoe's revelations remind us that every breakup has multiple layers, multiple perspectives, and multiple truths. And the one truth that stands out above the rest is this: even after heartbreak, it's possible to preserve love in a different form, especially when children are involved. That might be the real secret. Heartbreak can illuminate the heart's capacity for transformation. Zoe's vantage point reveals the potential for healing, for forging new paths without erasing the beautiful memories of the past. For viewers trying to reconcile the dissolution of the perfect couple with the unbreakable synergy they once showed, perhaps Zoe's honesty can provide closure. Life moved on. They parted ways, but the roots they planted together may still yield something valuable and lasting. Children raised with love and a family dynamic that evolves instead of imploding. Ultimately, Zoe's willingness to share these deeply personal reflections underscores that the greatest secrets, the ones that truly matter, are the quiet insights into how humans cope with the unrelenting changes life throws at them, and how, with a bit of grace, they can come out the other side still capable of caring for one another in unexpected ways. For more of the latest news, check out this video.